welcome to another episode of Influence and Growth Mastery. I'm your host, Tonya Gossage, and with me today, I have Julia Para, and we are here to talk about influence, self-care, growth, guarding your heart and confidence. I'm so excited to have Julia here with me. She is a transformational lifestyle coach. She's a motivational speaker who wants to impact teen girls and young women. And the ministry that she does is so impactful. One of the things that is important to her, which again, I love so much, is the self-love and self-care, knowing your worth and Godfidence and guarding your heart. And one of the things that I have been working on myself is in the area of Godfidence and confidence and guarding my own heart. And so I'm so anxious to hear from Julia today because the passion that she has for the work that she's doing in young teen girls and young women is so important. And I'm so anxious to get into our conversation today. And I'm just going to go right ahead and say, welcome, Julia. And I'm so anxious to hear from you. Welcome today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So welcome. So just go right on in and talk about the impact that you're having with teen girls and young women and what it is that you're doing.
Okay. So like Tonya said, I am a transformation coach, which really started from my own personal journey of trauma at a young age, leading to drug use, promiscuity, and some other behaviors that were lacking from a place of not having self-love. And through it all, when I was 25, I started having children. I have 3 daughters, and I always wondered, because of who I was before I met God, and all of the bad habits I had and everything. I'm like, God, I know these children are gifts, but why did you give them to me? Because I don't know what I'm doing. And I always ask God that question. But until I knew God's heart, I could not answer that question. And also I had to go through my own journey with self-love and just finding my true identity in Christ. And I just seen, like, as I was coaching adults, thinking that I was here to coach women, I kept getting all of these teens because I have, like I said, 3 daughters and 2 of them are teenagers, and they have friends that would always come to me. Like, I was the mom that answered everybody's questions. I was a therapist, but God started sending me girls who needed to get away from sexual abuse. And these are things like not just with confidence and identity or, just, minor things. It started getting big, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I can't turn my head to this. Like, this is serious. And I helped some little girls put their predators behind bars, and I'm still like going through the motions, trying to coach, but I kept praying, God, send me the people that you want me to coach, totally missing the mark of he's already doing that. He was sending me teens. And when I traced my youth back to, like, all of my trauma, I was like, okay, this came from a place of not having self-love. If I would have loved myself, if I would have known who I was, and I had positive people around me, or even knew God then I wouldn't have made the mistakes that I made. And, I forgive myself for making those mistakes. It has formed the person I am today and equipped me with the ability and the knowledge to help the people that I want to help, that God is sending me, which is teen girls and young adults. But I don't want everyone to have to go through that journey to find out who they are or who they are not, because that journey of figuring out who you are not is very long. and it doesn't have to be. So I went through a lot of pain to get to where I am today. And what our youth is going through right now, what I think it's Generation Z is going through is terrible. And we're accepting behaviors that would have never been accepted before. Even when I was young and I grew up in the 80s, it was not accepted, pedophilia and stuff like that. But you're seeing a lot of like famous people that are, you know, finally getting in trouble kind of, for the things that they're doing. But it took a lot of people standing up and speaking out for these people to get put behind bars. And it should not be like that, because a lot of people are getting hurt in the process. So I know that my calling is for the youth, and I'm seeing how it is affecting especially my 15-year-old daughter. The mother I am today is not the mother who I was when I was 25 and had her. And I was not in the right mindset to raise her correctly. So I was doing the best I can, was doing the best I could with what I had at the time, but that wasn't good enough. And teenagers are having kids. They're not able to raise children the way that they're supposed to be raised. You know, there's a lot of mothers out here who are single moms that are still children themselves, that have the mindset of a very young girl and are not ready to make the sacrifices as a mother has to raise their children correctly. So broken people are raising broken people in a broken world. And I want to help mend that together the best way that I can, and going back to the things that I've been through and the things that I have done to get where I am today. So,
Julia, I love, you know, how you are speaking out about that. I will share just a couple of things before I ask you a question, but I know that this is going on at such a young age, just in, you know, having conversations with, young kids, even myself. You know, I will throw conversations in here, you know, even with just my granddaughter who's in the 5th grade, shares with me things that she sees going on. You know, it's all over TV, number one. You know, we see the things that TV shares with us at such young ages. And then you see that they make all of this look appropriate at the teenage ages on TV. They make this look fun, but they don't show the long-term consequences of what happens. And I'm trying to think the name of the show that was a series that she watched. And I got in on the tail end of the episodes. And, you know, it's an addictive type show. Oh my goodness, it's not coming to mind. But she has watched that over and over and over. And she even said, can we go to that place where this movie was filmed? And it looks like a wonderful beach area. And
Outer Banks.
Outer Banks. Yes. She's watched that so many times. And I said, what you're not seeing here is the consequences of the fun that these people are having, all of this drinking, the smoking of this weed. And, you know, that's what they're not showing here. And she said to me, Julia, was to me and my mom, y'all are not living in the real world. And I have to tell you, that hit me so hard. And I said to her, what is the real world? And she said, everybody's doing it. And I said, everybody's doing what? Everybody's vaping and everybody's smoking weed. And lots of people are doing cocaine. And I have to tell you, I'm like, wow. And she said, there's even people that have had sex and have had a baby in the 7th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Julia, what an education I'm getting from a 5th grader, an 11-year-old. I'm being educated. Back when at my age, I had no idea about all of this,
Right.
So I'm being told I don't live in the real world. And so, I want to become such a protective grandma, Mimi, as she calls me. I want to become so protective of what's going on. Like you, I want to go protect these teen girls and these young mothers. I want to keep this from happening. So, I mentioned not long ago, I've wanted to start a nonprofit entity. And now, like you, I want to come and work with you. I want to work with others who want to be on this mission to stop this stuff.
Yep.
And so if it's happening at this age, in 2 years, is it going to be in the 2nd grade that this is happening? Or is it happening in the 2nd grade now?
It is.
And so I'm praying over her every day that God gives her wisdom to know when to say yes and when to say no. So, so my question then to you is, how do you set these people, these young teens up to know the self-love for themselves, to know not to get involved in this?
Right. And so many people are being taught, so many children are being taught to dislike themselves by social media and the access to comparing themselves to other people, and protecting is what we want to do, but when we overprotect, we end up pushing them away. So it is a very thin ground that not one mother, not one spiritual mother, or not one teacher can do. It's going to take a lot of women rising up. And it doesn't mean that the men are not important to this, but I am talking to my audience is women. I am called to speak to the women. And some of these women have husbands. And if they can get their husbands on board, then so be it. But a lot of us mothers are single moms and walking this path alone. And what you are going through with your granddaughter is exactly what my children say to me. My 12-year-old doesn't, thank God. She is like, I will not do this. I will not behave like this. And I'm not telling her these things. She has just got so much wisdom. And I just like see my 7-year-old and my 15-year-old are complete opposite. And it's not just them that I want to save. I want to really make a difference. And we just have to use our voice, and we have to listen to what God is leading us to do, and going to the uncomfortable places to speak to the masses who are, allowing these things. Like there's school systems that are allowing these different groups to come in, like for kids to be a part of. And I don't want any children to feel left behind, but they're condoning things that are wrong so that you don't hurt someone else's feelings, to hurt a small group of people whose is especially, and I know it's a touchy subject, but like with the transgender and the children who are being allowed to have these very dangerous surgeries at a young age when their bodies are not developed yet, or when their brains are not developed yet. We can barely tie our shoes at the age of 5, but you're supposed to be able to make a decision whether you want to be a he or a she. And there's just so many topics that I really think stem from accepting yourself as who you are and loving yourself. So I don't know the exact answer of what to do and where to start. I just know that this is important to me and I can't go about it alone. I need people like you. I need people that understand and want to speak out and want to move against this, because it is a movement. I started a brand, hashtag self-love queen, that I've been promoting a long time ago, when God told me, like, you're going to stand up and tell your story. I was like, my story. I was like, no, I'm not, because I was living a double life at the time and trying to, I had a lot of shame and guilt that went with my story. So I didn't want anybody to know. And he said, you're going to speak about it. So you got to start telling your family. So I was obedient, even though I didn't want to be. I started speaking to my family about it. But I knew it's something that's way bigger than me and bigger than my circumstances and bigger than the person that I was in my rehabilitation, or bigger than the transformation of one single person from, like, a weight loss transformation. All of those are important, but this was bigger. And I'm just asking for people to rise up who want to, like, stand in the place where you're going to be ridiculed, where you're going to be judged, where you're going to be hated, and stand up and rise against all of the things that are coming down on our children and attacking our children from whatever it is. And there's, like, different topics that might be more important to you than me, or important to the next person. Everybody is called to a piece of it, but it is all related. It is all to protect the Generation Z that is coming up. Our children are being attacked, and our government and our schools are allowing these things to happen, and it is not okay.
No, it is not okay. Well, I too have even, I spoke about the nonprofit entity that I want to start, and I want to help. I've thought, I want my podcast to bring in a profit. And so I've even been thinking about, how do I get sponsors for the podcast so that I can then take those funds and fund the nonprofit. And so, just so I have been thinking about how do I help fund the mission, the self-love queen? How do I help fund those types of missions? Because I too feel that has to be stopped. We can't have these kids at this age and, going through these types of things, because when you ask the child or a child the question, do you love yourself? And the response is, I love other people, but I don't love myself, or I've never thought about loving myself, or how do you love yourself? Right. That is just not the response you expect to get. And so, you want people to love themselves. And so, as I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, that I've been doing work myself. And so I've started making a list of, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? Where are my opportunities? And I've started doing my own work I've always put people before myself. I've never hated myself, but I've never thought about the self-care, the self-love, those types of things. But I've started changing about Tonya is first. Right. And so I've thought, if I make Tonya first and I love her, then Tanya's going to be a different person, and Tanya's going to see herself differently. She's going to see other people differently. And, I'm going to see those strengths differently, and I can help other people begin to see themselves differently. So if I don't see myself differently, I can't help Julia see herself differently. Right. And so, as I began to work on the mission with you and with others in this entity that I want to help fund, as a mission, then I have to do my own self-love work.
Right.
And so, I want you to know I am on a mission to help you fund and get behind you full force, because we can't do it
No.
alone. We can't. And I did a post not too long ago, and there was a teacher who I know pretty well that I went to school with. She's older than myself. And she talked about how this is so needed in the school system today. Mm-hmm. And she said, if I can help, let me know how I can help. So I do know that as this word starts to get out, there will be other people who fall in, Julia, to help. So what you're doing is definitely a need. And these kids, I think today, come from such trauma in their homes. They don't know how to self-love. Right. They don't know how to self-care.
Or they don't feel loved to even know that they're worth loving themselves, because a lot of times they're from broken systems. The places you're supposed to feel the safest, at home and at school, you are most risk anymore, and they don't have a safe place, a true safe place, or anyone who is going through something. You don't have a lot of people telling them that there's a different way, that you don't have to accept that piece of you and just go with it and make up a total different identity in it than who you were born to be. So there's a lot of fake acceptance going around that ends up hurting the children. But you can't pour into someone else's cup unless you pour into yours first. And self-care and knowing your identity is like the key components to being able to pour into someone else. So you have to take time for yourself, because I was the same person, just trying to please everyone else. But I realized it was a codependency, but I realized it came from a place of lack, that I felt better when I was helping someone else because it made me feel better about myself, but it also made me not focus on myself because I knew I had a lot of work to do. So if I could fix somebody, then I would feel better. That was a way of pleasing myself. And I got myself into so much trying to fix other people, which you cannot fix people. You can only support them. And, fixing just doesn't work. So I had a lot to go through myself, and that whole journey of self-care. And I didn't know anything about self-love either, or think that I didn't have it. Like you said, it's not something you think about. But when I went through the journey of self-care and just making healthy habits for myself and sticking to them and accomplishing them and figuring out who I was and letting that identity release, my true identity, I realized that I actually love myself. And that's what really got me into thinking about how all of the things that I chose for myself before that, like the toxic relationships, toxic even friendships, and all of the behaviors that I had, that was because of the fact that I did not love myself. And a lot of people don't, because we're taught to do for others and love others, but yet the whole self part, God says, love thyself as you love your neighbor. So you must love yourself first. And to love yourself, you gotta know God and love God as well first. So yeah, they're all related, but I know so much needs to be done. And it seems when you look at all of the things going on in the world and at the schools, that there's not much hope there, but there is hope. We just have to rise up and believe it and fight for it. There is a battle and we must fight. It's not just going to change. People aren't just going to wake up not unless we go to the forefront and bring this to the people who need to hear it, who are on top to make the difference. And I think
Mm-hmm.
schools is a good place to start.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. I completely agree. I think that, we are supposed to love ourselves. And I don't think we're taught that necessarily. We're taught to love other people. And I really think we're taught to love other people first before ourselves, and to take care of other people. And I feel like I've always done a great job taking care of other people. I've always put other people first. And now that I've learned to put me first, I can say that, and I always love taking care of other people. I mean, I strive daily to take care of other people. But now that I'm learning to take care of me first and put me as a priority before other things, I have to say that there's a whole new level of happiness within inside of me than I've ever had before. And I know that may sound strange to some people, and it may sound selfish. I've always thought that people that put themselves first were selfish people, but I have a whole new respect for that today. And I do think there could be a level of selfishness there if you take it to an extreme. But I have to tell you that I have a whole new respect for myself and a whole new love for myself. And I used to never really do anything for me. And as I've started doing those things for me, it's just such a rewarding thing. Yeah. And so now as I'm teaching people like you to do things for themselves and to take care of themselves, both inside and out, physically, eating more healthy, walking and exercising and doing things. It's just rewarding. And then to share with people that they can turn their own situation around, even though they've been through a tragic situation also. Knowing, number one, that it wasn't their fault. Possibly what happened to them was not their fault, right, but they can still love themselves, even though what happened to them. It takes work.
Absolutely.
It takes work.
And forgiveness.
Forgiveness.
Big key of loving yourself is forgiving yourself, whether you have done things to yourself or to other people. You must forgive yourself. So it is definitely a process. And I think if we were teaching that to our youth, we're going to save their children. I mean, if you learn to love yourself at a young age and make better choices, you're going to be a better parent and you're going to love better. So that's the thing. Like it could be selfish to an extent, depending on your motives. But when your motives are to love yourself so you could be the best version of yourself, that is not selfish. It's necessary. It's critical. And it's just, a big roller coaster. If you start at a place at a young age of feeling not loved from you or other people, and you have no confidence in yourself, then you're just going to continue to make bad choices, and that's just going to affect everybody around you. So I think it's great, though, what you're doing. And I love it that you're finally seeing that and able to have those rewards, because I've been there too. I I had those rewards. And that's what got me into coaching in the first place. Cause I was like, wow, people have to know this. Like, I once said something like, I don't know who it was to, but I was on this journey of just trying to figure out what I was going to do next, but not coaching yet. And I was just really focused on all of the things of mental, spiritual, and physical health. And I thought, okay, because I have 3 kids, and of course I was taking care of them, but I was like, should I be taking care of myself like this? Am I like not doing something I'm supposed to do because I'm spending so much time on self care? And I felt like God was like, no, this is exactly what you're supposed to do. And then I was told someone like, I love this so much. I wish I could just do this for a living and just continue to take care of myself. And someone, and I cannot remember who, but was like, you can do it for a living. You could be a coach. You could be a health coach. And I was like, oh yeah. So that's what got me on my journey to becoming a coach. But I just thought it was a coach, and and those coaches are important, but I'm like, oh no, this is bigger than me. This is bigger than this is big. And that is exactly why we're having this conversation.
I love that. I love that. So Julia, if someone wanted to have you come and speak at a school, a church, to a youth group, to have you talk to the kids, how would they reach out to you?
There's a few different ways. Do you want me to tell you my email right now?
Yeah, you could do email, your social medias. Okay. You could share that.
Let's do Instagram _Queen of Self Love. And then on Facebook, I'm Julia Denise Pero. And my email is ktransformationcoachjp@gmail.com. It's very long.
We'll put them in the show notes for you as well. And then that way, if anybody would like to reach out to Julia to have her come and speak, you will be blessed. Your kids will be blessed to have her come and speak
or come
to your audience.
Come partner with me, and let's save our youth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. She is on a mission, and there are some of us who are partnering to help her do this mission. And I believe she's going to be very successful in reaching our teens and our young women as she goes on this mission. And Julia, you have been you are a blessing and going to continue to be a blessing in saving our teens and help putting this pedophilia, this trash, as I call it, we may not ever be able to put it to a full halt, but we hope to save some of our children and to help get our children to a place where they love themselves and take care of themselves, and even to a point that we keep some individuals from suicide, because I know that there are individuals who, and I know some, that get to a point to where they feel so unloved that they even look to those measures. So Julia, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I use my podcast as a platform to host people like you to help get their brand, their message out to a wider network. And without it, the messages cannot be delivered. So I enjoy having entrepreneurs and small business owners like you here to spread that message. So thank you again for being here. Yes, such a pleasure. So for those of you that are in the audience that are entrepreneurs, small business owners, I would love for you to join, if you have not already, my free Facebook group called Influence and Growth Mastery, to where you can pick up tips, tricks, and technology success strategies. Again, it is Influence and Growth Mastery. And until the next episode, we will see you again soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.